Hi guys, my name is Bobby. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm bringing you my August wrap up. Now, August actually was a really good month for me. I was kind of surprised because July was the Sarah J. Maas roller coaster and like the Fairy Smut roller coaster, so I was worried like getting into August that I would not have as good as a reading month as I did in July, but I did. I read 5.5 books, so that's actually really not that bad for me. I was trying to squeeze in a sixth, but I didn't. I failed. But yeah, I got like 5.5, so I'm going to talk about my DNF first, and then my ebook, and then I'll go through the rest that I have physically. So unfortunately, the book that I ended up DNFing this month was North and South by John Jakes. So I failed my first book club read ever. And this was really upsetting because Vicky and I started a book club where every other month we pick and read a book that you can take all 2 months to read, and it's really chill, relaxed. It's called the Random Reads Book Club. It's linked in the description if you'd like to join. I just released in the group what our October pick is, and so Vicky and I will not announce what our October pick is on YouTube until our October TBRs. So if you're already in the group, you should already know what October's read is, but this was August's read, and this was our first pick, and we picked this book because the first time Vicky and I everybody read together, we read Gone with the Wind, and that was 2 years ago. So we decided we'd pick another Civil War epic. So I ended up DNFing this about 150, 200 pages in. So the reason I DNF'd this was not necessarily the story's fault, though kind of. This was kind of slow moving. It was a little dense, which I knew it was going to be dense going into it. And while I liked the story of the two men, this book is a huge chunk, and it only leads up to the Civil War. Like the entirety of the Civil War is in book 2. And I know a couple of other people struggled with this. Most of the people who decided to read with us this month have finished the book, which is great. I know Vicky's not quite done yet, but I'm pretty sure she's finishing it this month. But I just struggled. There's been a lot of stuff going on in my personal life, especially with my dad, and a lot of stress. And this was so dense that I just could not read it. I just couldn't even make myself read it. Like, I would pick it up, and it was just, I was dreading reading it, and it's not necessarily the book's fault. It's my mental state's fault. So I DNF'd it. I talked to Vicky about it. She said, don't worry about it. She's like, it happens. If you're not jiving with a book, it's totally fine. But I felt guilt because it was our book club pick, and it was our first pick, and I didn't even fucking read it. Like, I read a tiny little portion of it. So I felt really guilty about it. And she said, don't worry about it. It's fine. And so I DNF'd it. And I know a lot of people tend to enjoy it. It's very, very, very drama filled for sure. I didn't really get too much to the drama part where I stopped, but most of the people in the group tend to kind of fall in the middle. I didn't see anybody who absolutely loved it yet. I know Sarah's really enjoying it. A lot of people said that now they want to watch the miniseries and probably won't continue with the series. They're just going to watch the miniseries instead and be done with it. So I didn't rate this. I didn't feel it was fair to rate it since I DNF'd it, but I know our October pick I will definitely read because it's something, it's like perfectly spooky for the month of October, and I can't wait to read that one. But this one unfortunately didn't work for me, so I will be unhauling this and the other two because, you know, being me, I bought all 3 instead of just the one. Okay, first of all, I turned my fan back on. I'm using my ring light. It's almost 7 o'clock at night, even though I always use my ring light. It's fucking hot in here. It's like 80 degrees outside, and it's hot in here, so I'm sorry if you can hear my fan. I really, really apologize, but I would rather have my fan on and you guys hear that a little bit than have sweat pouring down my face. So anyways, the second book that I read, or not that it wasn't the second book I read, but I'm going to talk about my ebook, which is Dark Harmony by Laura Thalassa. This is book 3 in the Bargainer series, and this I gave 4 stars. So I think every single book in the series I've given 4 stars. I really enjoyed this. I just had a problem with the ending. This, of course, is the story, like I've talked about it before, it's the story of the Bargainer. So it's pretty much the love story of Desmond and Callie. Callie is a siren, and Desmond is the Bargainer. He's this fairy who all you have to do is say, Bargainer, I'd like to make a deal, and he shows up, and he does whatever you need him to do, and in exchange, you owe him a favor. In the beginning of Rhapsodic, Callie has 340-something beads on a bracelet on her arm, which are all favors she owes to the Bargainer. And she hasn't seen him in 7 years, and she's in her early to mid-20s, and I think she's in her early 20s. And Desmond shows up wanting her to pay back all of the things that she owes him. And the story goes from there. So this is a very, very, very sexy time book. It is very much a fantasy romance with some pretty good smut in it. I really enjoyed book 1. Book 2 was all right. I loved the novella. And this one was good, except for I had an issue with the pacing. So there's a huge overarching plot point that goes with back in the Fae world, and it involves both Des and Callie. And so they're trying to figure out what's happening to all of these soldiers that have been frozen in time, kind of. They're like almost like in a Sleeping Beauty slumber kind of thing, or a Snow White slumber, where they're still alive, but they're not alive. It's just kind of hard to explain. So that is kind of like the overarching plot, like trying to figure out what happened to these people, who did it, whatever. So you've got that in the background. So book 3 is like the culmination of this. We're getting up to like this big climax and all this stuff. My issue is with the pacing. The first half of the book was pretty much just a Des and Callie porno. I mean, if I'm being completely honest. I mean, it literally was just them bebopping around like the Fae world and around the world, because they can travel over the world on these ley lines, and just going and exploring and traveling and fucking. That's literally all they were doing. While the sex scenes were really steamy and very, very good. By like halfway through the book, I'm like, okay, are we gonna get to the plot any day soon? Like, I want to know what's going on. Like, I want to know what's going on with the antagonist. I want to know, where are we going? There was a whole bunch of action at the end of book 2. What's happening now? Why are we sitting here like dicking around? And I think she was doing it because they had said that, you know, the bad guy had told Callie that you'd only have so much time with Des and all this stuff. So I think that's kind of what she was trying to do. But I got bored. I was like, well, these sex scenes are great. Like, can we get to the plot? And when we get to the ending, I felt it was a little too fast, because it's like, oh shit, now we gotta hurry up and do the ending. And while the atmosphere and like where it was set and like what happened was cool, I just thought the ending was like that. It was too quick. Like, well, we could have done that back in like book 2, or maybe at the end of book 1, and But on the other hand, like, while the ending wasn't the greatest, I so love Callie and Des, and I really love the relationship. Desmond is a step above Rhysand for me, and I believe Becca has said the same thing. Like, he is just chef's kiss. He is perfect. Well, I guess he's not necessarily perfect, but he's definitely very dark. He's a lot darker than Rhysand, because while Rhysand's darkness is kind of like a game that he puts on and a front he puts on for people, not so for Desmond. For Desmond, that's just how he is, and I fucking loved it. So yeah, I gave it 4 stars. I'm so happy I read the series. Thanks a lot to Becca for more of your bad recommendations that just make me ruin entire TBRs. But I highly recommend it if you're into fairy romance, fairies, fantasy romance, with a little bit of smut. Like, it is very smut heavy, so know that going in. If you're not into that, do not pick up this series. With the other 4 books, we're gonna go in the order that I read them. Oh, sorry. So the first book that I finished in the month of August was Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I gave this book 3 stars. Okay, so everybody's kind of raving about this book, and I don't really understand why. I understand why people enjoy the atmosphere, because it's very, very atmospheric. So this, I looked up how to pronounce her name. It's Noemi. I was pronouncing in my head Nomi, but it's Noemi. So this is a story about Noemi. She lives in Mexico City. She is kind of a socialite. I believe this is it in the 20s? 50s. Takes place in the 50s. And she's a socialite, and her family's very well off and all that. And she receives a letter from her cousin, who lives in this mansion up in the middle of nowhere, that she thinks her husband and his family are trying to kill her. And she thinks the house might be haunted. And she wants Noemi. Keep wanting to say Naomi, it's Noemi. She wants Noemi to come up and visit her and help her and try to figure out what's going on. So Noemi, her dad says go, and so she goes, and she goes up to this house, and then everything kind of goes from there. It is very gothic, very atmospheric, but I hated the fucking twist. The twist was so stupid, and that's why I gave it 3 stars. Well, I loved the atmosphere. The twist was fucking dumb. And it's such a slow burn. It's a slow build. Like, you don't even get the twist till you only have, I think, maybe 100 pages left, maybe less. I can't quite remember. I read this pretty quickly in the beginning of the month, and it just pissed me off. I was like, we have all this really cool buildup for this. Like, this is it. It was just fucking weird. Vicky's reading this right now. I think she's reading it. I don't think she's finished it yet. But I need to ask her, because I'm curious to how she's going to react to the twist, because I wasn't sure if she was going to be a fan. I know I hated it. It's stupid. It's fucking stupid. I did like the premise and stuff leading up to it, and the family's really creepy, and there's like a creepy older man, and it's like everything's just kind of creepy and weird. But that twist was so fucking stupid. I think if the twist would have been done differently, or it just was different entirely, I think it would have been a lot better. A lot of people compare this to the Yellow Wallpaper, which I kind of understand, but I read up on what that was about, and the twist and stuff has nothing to do with that. It just has to do with, like, I guess, like, her cousin and how her cousin is. I mean, it was good. If you're looking for a really gothic thriller, then definitely try this and give this a try. The writing was really beautiful. It just was very slow moving. Just know that it's kind of slow paced and slow to start. I almost DNF'd it because I don't do well with slow starts, but I pushed myself because I'd heard so many good things about it. Just know that twist ending, or the twist, yeah, kind of have to suspend your disbelief, and it is kind of goddamn ridiculous. So if you can suspend that, then pick it up. But for me, it was only 3 stars. But next, on a whim, I listened to Bethany at Beautifully Bookish Bethany. She read this book in July, I believe. I think it was in her July wrap-up. And I immediately, after listening to her and what she had to say about it, I immediately had to buy it. And so I bought it, and after it got here, 2 days later, and I immediately picked it up, and I binged it, and it is now a new favorite book. And that is The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. This book was fucking fantastic. 5 stars. If I could give it any higher, I would. This book is, I think, its own voices. Yes, she's definitely a person of color. I don't know her heritage. I don't know if she's black, but our main character, Emmanuel, is black. But this, oh God, like, how do I describe this book? So this tells the story of Emmanuel, who lives, it doesn't say, like, the time period. I don't know if it's supposed to be present day and these people are kind of sequestered. There was that movie way back in the day that had, oh God, what's his name? The director. It had his daughter in it. His first name's Ron. I can't think of his last name. He was on Happy Days. It has his daughter in it, and it's, I can't remember the name of it, where they lived, like, in this world, or like sequestered, where it was actually in the real world, and that was the twist, where you thought it was way back when. And you know, they send the blind girl out to try to find something because they keep telling everybody there's monsters in the woods when there's not. It's just regular civilization. I cannot remember. It's a very old movie, but this kind of reminded me of that, only that there is no twist like that in here. It's not like that. I didn't spoil it, I promise. But it's very much like that. Emmanuel lives in this very small hamlet town, and it's very, very, very religious. It's run by this church where there is a prophet. So it very much reminds me of polygamy, because there is polygamy in here. So it very much reminds me of, like, polygamists and stuff like that now, only a little bit more extreme. Very, very religious. They dress like it's the 1700s, like dresses and high neck collars and stuff like that. And it's very patriarchal. It's run by the men. The women literally have no rights. It's very white driven. Anybody of color lives on the outskirts in kind of like these slums that are out in the middle of nowhere that everybody ignores. And Emmanuel is half black, half white, and her mom was white, her dad was black, and she lives with her grandparents yes, it's her grandparents and then their sister wife, I guess, because her grandfather has 2 wives. And so her grandmother is, they only had the one daughter, her mother, who is now gone. And then there's the other wife who has 2 little girls, and she lives with them. And all she's heard about her mother is that her mother was terrible and had run off to be with the witches, and she came back and she was pregnant with Emmanuel, and so she got in big ass trouble for that. The father of her child, because he was black, he was considered sinful and terrible because her mother was betrothed to the prophet, and so they burned him at the stake. And you know, so she doesn't have a father. Her mother died in childbirth, giving birth to her. And in this society, they don't treat people with color well at all. So she's always looked at really weird. These people believe there are 3 witches who live in the woods, and these witches, there's Lilith, and then there's 3 others. There's one that controls the water, and then there's 2 others that I think they're called, like, I don't know if they're called the twins or something like that. I can't remember. they're calling them the lovers is what it is. So there's 4 witches that are really powerful that live in the woods. They're warned to stay away from the woods because that's where the sin is. You'll be drawn in by the witches. So it's got a lot of things going on. It's very, 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 very witchy, and I absolutely fucking loved it. She ends up going into the woods at one point, and she meets 2 of the witches who give her mom's diary. So she reads through her mom's diary. She starts learning a little bit more about her mother, who she never knew. And in this society, some people have gifts, so it's kind of magical, but they don't consider it witchy. Where they have these gifts, where her grandmother has a gift of naming. So like when she's a midwife, so when babies are born, their god, I don't remember what they call him, the father, I think they call him, will give her the name of what the baby's supposed to be named. Like, so she knew that her name was going to be Emmanuel when she was born. And stuff like that. So they kind of got cool gifts. There's some of the males who have certain gifts, like some have gifts of premonition and stuff like that. So Emmanuel has a best friend named Leah, and Leah is betrothed to the prophet. So at the start of the book, they have just gone to church. They go to church multiple times a week, and they're sitting on the banks of the river, and Leah's telling her about how she's betrothed to the prophet, and she's really excited about it. The prophet has like 10 wives. It's very much cultish. So if you love cults, this is right up your fucking alley. If you love witches, right up your alley. And she is hanging out also with Ezra, who's the prophet's son and his heir to the prophecy, or to be the next prophet or whatever when his dad dies. And in this society, the prophet's heir will get they don't call it a premonition, but it's almost something like that, where when that happens, then the prophet currently in power starts to lose his power until death, so that his son could take over. This is a very patriarchal society. Emmanuel does not want Leah to marry the prophet, but she doesn't really have a choice. She knows she's going to lose her best friend. So she's got all this stuff going on. It's like, I know I'm all over the place with this review. Like, I'm jumping from one thing to another, to another, to another. But there's just so much. Between the witches and Emmanuel trying to figure out where she fits in this world, because she knows she's supposed to not be in this world because she's a person of color. And there's so many themes surrounding that are perfect for like today. There's so much oppression of women, and that is perfect for today. It hits on so many issues that are pertinent to today, plus just having this really atmospheric, witchy, cultish vibe. It was just beautiful. It was perfect. It was beautifully written. I read it in 2 sittings. It was absolutely amazing. Like, some people have compared it to The Handmaid's Tale, but like with the craft kind of, because there's more witchcraft. I mean, they burn people at the stake for witchcraft all the time. So it's just insane. This story is completely insane. It's super fast moving. It's very, very engaging. I really loved Emmanuel. I really loved how she kind of came into her own and accepted herself for who she is, and accepted that she's a person of color, and that there's nothing wrong with that. And just because she has a vagina, there's nothing wrong with her. I mean, the men in this society, blame women because they cheat, or blame them because it didn't rain today. Like, shit like that. It is so fucking good. There are trigger warnings for molestation of a child, rape of a child, burning at the stake, blood, and like carving, because when a new girl marries the prophet, they carve this like symbol into their forehead with a knife. So there's that. There is some violence in here. Like, there is a big showdown at one point, so there is some violence, but it is so worth it. It is so fucking good. Like, all I knew going into this was that it was a very oppressive society where this woman is a person of color, and that is a slam against her. Also, that she's a woman is a slam against her. So she's already got 2 strikes, and just her dealing and trying to get out of this world. But it was so fantastic. It was so fucking good. I highly recommend it if you're into cults or if you're into witches. This will give you everything you need. It'd be perfect October read, though I wouldn't necessarily call it thrilling. I mean, it's not scary. There are some thrilling parts and like stuff that is really tension filled. But for me, I think this book was written to touch on issues of today with using, not a fantasy setting, because it's not really fantasy, but kind of, there's witchy stuff in it, but kind of using a fantasy setting a mild fantasy setting to touch on issues of today. And it was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. I will read anything she writes. This is a debut novel, and I was completely shocked this was a debut novel. This is definitely a favorite of the year. Next on my list, is Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas. I read this with Cindy. We are trying to read through all the Throne of Glass books. I'm slacking on Air of Fire right now, but not much to say about this one. I gave it 3 stars, 4 stars. I gave Throne of Glass 2. I think this one was 3. I know it was higher than Throne of Glass. Can't remember if I gave this 3 or 4. I'm really terrible. Editing me maybe if I put 3 or 4. I can't remember. Can't remember if it was 3 stars or 4 stars. But I liked it. It was way better than Throne of Glass. Can't say much about it only because it's a sequel. What can I say about it? I love Kale. I stan him hard. I know that he is not Endgame, but, mild spoiler, I guess. I know he's not Endgame, but I have a really bad feeling that he's just gonna get the shit under the stick all the way through the series, and that really pisses me off. I know Sarah J. Maas is really good at the bait and switch, like, makes you really strive and love, you know, this one love interest, and then switches it and flips it on ahead and then tries to make you love this one. I enjoyed that a little bit in the ACOTAR series. I'm not so much loving it in this one. But I did enjoy this. I did enjoy that Selena was definitely an assassin in this one. That was my biggest gripe from Throne of Glass. And this one, she fucking kills people. And you see it on page. And she's a badass. And I really appreciated that. Because I was tired of just saying, people going, oh, she's so great. Oh, she's so pretty. Oh, she's so this. Yeah, well, can you fucking show me? And I don't care if she's fucking pretty. The whole point is that she's an assassin. I don't care if she's butt fucking ugly and, you know, has a peg leg. Like, that doesn't matter to me. Like, just, I want to see, hi, Thunder. I want to see her kill people. And in this one, I got it. So I was very happy for that. Air of Fire is like 5 million pages. So I'm currently reading that one. But yeah, this one was a lot better than Throne of Glass. And I'm still going to continue. I have a mission to finish the series now. And this one, yeah, it just kind of is what it is. It was good. Better than Throne of Glass. Can't really say much. See, is there anything else important? I don't know, because I've already started Air of Fire. So it's like, is there anything else important that I have to say about this one? No, I don't think anything besides I love Kale. That's about it. Okay, and then the last book I read, which Becca already knows, but it would make her very happy, is Fortuna Sworn by KJ Sutton. And this was a gift from Becca for my birthday. So thank you again, Becca. Unfortunately, I gave this one 3 stars, which she was not happy about. It kind of broke her. But it's not a bad thing. Like, I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. And I think what was a big disservice to this book was that I read it way too close to the Bargainer series and the ACOTAR series, because this is a fairy romance or fantasy romance with fairies. Granted, I'm already like halfway through book 2 and I have yet to see said romance. So so this is definitely not smutty like the other, well, Bargainer series is the smuttiest, and then ACOTAR, and then I would say this one, because so far there was no smut in this book. There was one tiny scene that was very tiny and wasn't actual sex, so, or full intercourse, I guess. It was something else, but it was, you know what I mean? It wasn't like the Bargainer series where like there was sex every chapter. This is definitely not that. This tells a story of Fortuna Sworn, Fortuna, who is a nightmare. And a nightmare is somebody where all she has to do is touch your skin once and she can get into your mind and find your deepest, darkest fears and project an illusion that you are suffering from or in the middle of your greatest, darkest fears, which she's very rare. There's only her and her brother, the only 2 known nightmares left in the world, and her brother has gone missing. So in the beginning of this book, her brother's been gone for 2 years and she's been searching for him and she's trying to find him. She gets stuck in a sticky situation, and this fairy king named Colith comes to where she works and pretty much gives her a proposition. I know where your brother is and I'll help you go find him and I'll help you get him on the condition that you marry me. So she does, and it goes from there. This was really good in that I liked the atmosphere. I really like Colith. Fortuna wasn't my favorite in this one. I'm currently reading the second book, Restless Slumber, and I like her way more in that one than I do in this one. In this one, she's kind of a whiny brat, and she's very focused on what she wants, and I didn't really care for her, because she does this shit where she doesn't take anything at face value, which I guess is okay, but there were certain things in here that were so stupid. Like, there was a main character in here mild spoiler for this book, who nobody can see but her. She doesn't figure out that nobody else can see him until almost the end, and that kind of pissed me off because I could tell right away that nobody else could see him. And wouldn't you question that? And this character is also another fairy, and she immediately like befriends him and trusts him and totally fine, but she doesn't trust Colith, which is, you know, her now husband, even though he's done nothing but be nice to her. It's just kind of odd. I guess I was so used to like the bargainer, you know, like Callie and Feyre, where they're immediately all about their faymate, whereas Fortuna really wasn't. So I guess it kind of threw me off a little bit. I also don't like that she's really rash in decision making. Like, she doesn't really seem to think anything through. She's just so one focus minded, like that I see this and I'm going to do it, and I don't care who I'm going to hurt or if I kill anybody in the way to do it. And then she has to face 3 trials because she's trying to become queen of the Unseelie court, because she knows if she is, well, she's already the king of the Unseelie court's mate, but if she becomes the queen, it gives her more status and power over these fairies that she loathes. So she's doing it mainly to help get her brother back, so she has to go through these 3 trials. These 3 trials were eerily similar to the ones that Feyre has to do in the ACOTAR series, and that really bothered me. There was enough variation on them to where they were their own. Like, the first task that Feyre has to do is there's this giant worm that's chasing her and trying to kill her, and so she's got to find a way to kill the worm. In Fortuna's instance, it's a Leviathan, which is like, there's like this big underground pool with a rock in the middle, and she's like on top of it, and the Leviathan is like this dragon-like swimming creature that's it's very long, worm-like, but it's dragon-like Leviathan that she has to kill. In the second task in Feyre, she has to solve a riddle in order to save somebody before it kills them or herself. And Fortuna's was she had to find her way out of the Unseelie court without any help from anybody else, because it's a maze of different things. That one was the one that was probably the most different from the second task that Feyre had to do. But then the third task, they both had to kill somebody. And so it just kind of bothered me because it was a little bit too close to the ACOTAR series. She did make them her own, but then it was really choppy as well. So it's like, Feyre, all she did was, or not Feyre, all Fortuna did was take baths. She didn't fucking eat. She just took a whole bunch of baths. So it's like she did the first task, and then she immediately went back to the room that she shares with Colith. She goes back to the room, she takes a bath, doesn't eat, goes to sleep, gets up the next day, gets dressed, goes and does the second task, and it kept going like that. And it was like, it was really choppy. It was like, oh, okay, so nothing else is happening. Oh, okay, we're moving on to the next one. I know it's the first in this series, and already I'm loving book 2 a lot more. Fortuna has kind of slowed her roll in book 2. It's like, and I'm definitely enjoying it a lot more. There's a lot more happening, and I'm liking the characters a lot more. And this one, I wasn't really a big Fortuna fan. I really liked Colith though, and I really am not a fan of her brother Damon. I think he's just a whiny bitch. I'm just really not a fan of him. But I am continuing, and so I told Becca, I was like, it's all right. I only gave it 3, but 3's not bad. It's not great either, but it's not terrible. And I am continuing. There's 6 books in the series, I think, so far, according to Goodreads. I'm reading book 2 now. Book 3 comes out in December. And from what I understand, the ending of book 2 is fucking atrocious and horrible and heartbreaking. And I'm scared to get to it because I'm like halfway through, but I know I don't have to wait very long to read book 3. So it's 3 stars. It's not terrible, but it wasn't my favorite either. I think it could have been, if the writing was a little bit smoother and the way that it like flowed, I think it would have been better. And if she had to do the trials, if they were just different, like even if the first 2 were different and she just had to kill somebody at the last one, like Feyre did, I think I'd be more okay with that than the first and the third one being almost identical. But I highly recommend this if you want a fae. It's like a fantasy fae romance, yes, but it's way dialed down on the smut. There's like next to nothing. They barely have kissed really anything. So it's a little bit more mild when it comes to the smut stuff. And it's a lot of political intrigue and a lot of fairy court intrigue. So if you're into that, then I would definitely pick this one up because it was interesting and it was good and it was enough to keep me reading. I was just a little disappointed in how it was executed. Okay, guys, that's it. That is my August wrap up, and I'm really proud of myself. I only have 32 minutes of footage, and I'm really proud because normally by this time I have an hour. That is it. If you've read any of these books, please let me know down in the comments below. I love hearing from you guys. I love hearing your thoughts. What did you guys read in August? Did you have a good reading month? I think mine wasn't too shabby. 5 books and a DNF, that's not bad. I think I'm getting my reading mojo back, so I'm feeling good. We're on an upswing. Now, if all the stress in my life would just calm the fuck down, I think it would be a little easier. I'm vlogging right now, so hopefully the next video you see will be my first week vlogging for Becca's Bookopoly-thon, which already is turning into a hot mess where I haven't really read that much, but that'll be it. But other than that, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.